welcome to another episode 3 of Crossplay Compatible. I'm your host, Karrington, and with me, I've got the one, the only, Roger. How are you, Roger?
I'm well. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Thanks for listening.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't know about you, but I've looked at, the numbers and stuff, and people seem to like this, so let's just keep doing it.
Yeah, I've actually had some of the Gamerhead listeners that listen to the Gamerhead say, "Well, it's really cool. I really enjoyed listening to that crossplay compatible stuff that you guys do." So
awesome!
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. I love feedback. So if you guys are listening right now, let us know. I'm from Real Dudes Podcast and Roger's from Gamerheads. Let us know what you think of the crossplay compatible series, because we love doing these and they're a lot of fun. And who knows? We may have other people on because we got some stuff going on in the background.
Yeah, we got a little network, if you will, that we're working on. So
yeah, and we are excited to be doing stuff not just between Real Dudes and Gamerheads, but with other shows as well. And so, we're excited, we're pumped, and pretty soon you'll be hearing them as well.
Yeah, this is kind of cool because this is the flagship, if you will, of that.
For
network,
sure,
if you will.
For sure,
it's kind of cool.
I'm excited. 2018 has started off fantastic so far, and I feel like it's that we are just gonna keep growing and keep an upward trend kind of thing. And this is just a lot of fun, and I'm ready to do more.
Yeah, cool. Well, Karrington, I have a icebreaker
all right
our podcast. So I've done this before with Gamerheads, but we kind of touched upon it before we actually started recording, so I thought this would be kind of a cool icebreaker. What is the weirdest or most unique thing that you've seen a restaurant start doing, I guess, to kind of, I don't know, maybe entice people to come, or maybe just a gimmick that they do?
So when you brought this up, I've been thinking about long and hard, what has happened in the past. The reason that this came up in the first place is because Taco Bell is selling French fries now.
That's so weird.
It is so weird. But I've had them. We're actually going to talk about on our show, Real Dudes Podcast, here pretty soon, so I won't reveal how they are here on our show. Yeah. It's an interesting concept and gimmick for Taco Bell to do. But just through the years, nothing immediate comes to mind, but I do remember a few years ago that Burger King tried out the Whopperito, which is basically a burrito with a Whopper inside of it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh gosh, that was awful. Awful.
Yeah.
And McDonald still does the McRibs, and I'm not a McRib guy, so I'm like, why do they keep doing this?
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah. yeah, just a little bit. It's whatever. To each their own, I guess.
When I it kind of ties into actually the year that we'll be talking about with our game. It's 1992. That's when I worked at McDonald's in my hometown of Kiel, Wisconsin. And Kiel's a very small town, probably about 3,000, 4,000 people. And we had pizza at our McDonald's.
Pizza?
Yes.
Okay, so at 92, I was 2 years old. But there's just no way McDonald's, was it good?
It was actually kind of good.
Oh, okay.
They had little personal pizzas, and then you could order a family style pizza as well. But the problem was, it took 25 minutes to make, so it wasn't really that fast. And we were a test market for this pizza.
Okay.
And people would come through the drive-thru and order a family style pizza, and it was crazy because you couldn't just have these things, on hand because they weren't that popular.
Fair enough. So you couldn't just make it at the beginning of the day and just
exactly.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, exactly. Like burgers. I mean, not that you make them in the beginning of the day, but you do have a bunch on hand that you can say, okay, I have these in a warmer, I can give these out. But yeah, pizzas, we didn't really have that. So, you'd be rushing around trying to get the pizza all done for somebody that's in the drive-thru for 25 minutes, and still have other customers you had to wait on. It was
right.
not the greatest idea. This is good pizza, but it wasn't the greatest idea.
I'm sure now it's just throw it in the microwave if they did it. If they decide to come back with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe they'll hear the podcast and say, "Hey, wait a minute. Do you remember when we used to do McDonald's pizza?
Oh gosh,
let's bring that back."
I mean, McDonald's has the cafe thing now that they seem to like, so they don't need to grow.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I've talked to some other people, and I've heard one other time where somebody said, "Yeah, we had pizza at our McDonald's too." But it was a very, very rare thing. I think there was only like 12 McDonald's in the world that actually sold the pizzas. So, yeah,
interesting. I can honestly say I've never heard of that until now, but I'm actually kind of curious.
And that was back in 1992, the year that the game we'll be talking about came out.
Indeed. So 1992. Why 1992? That was the year Super Star Wars on the Super Nintendo came out. And we figure, with the recent release of The Last Jedi. Now, we did mean to record this a long time ago, but I took a little break just from recording in general, and now we're back. So here we are.
Yeah.
So Roger, just give us a little rundown. What happened in 1992 that was exciting?
Yeah. So 1992, there's a lot of things in this year that I didn't realize happened, even though I was like 16 and I should have remembered all this stuff, but I was like, really, this happened in 1992? So here we go. The year 1992, the Cartoon Network was established by Turner Broadcast System in October. So this is interesting. I didn't realize this, but the first round of programming consisted of old Warner Brothers cartoons, let's see, MGM and Hanna-Barbera cartoons as well. And the very first cartoon to air was Looney Tunes. It was a short called The Great Piggy Bank Robbery.
Oh.
And then one of the series that actually launched from this Cartoon Network, one of my favorite series, was Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
My gosh. That needs to make a comeback.
It does, doesn't it? Oh, gosh. Yes. It was such a great... Oh, it was so funny.
And
it was so funny.
The episodes that you can find right now on YouTube, there's not a whole lot, but the ones that are up there, they're just classics. Instant classics.
Yeah, it was such a goofy concept, but man, I laughed so hard watching that. So
me too. I'm just going to give it like a brief history for our audience because they probably don't know what Space Ghost Coast to Coast is because it was such a niche thing. So for those of you that don't know what it was basically Space Ghost, which was a cartoon character from Hanna-Barbera, and the two of the villains that were in that cartoon were his co-hosts. And it was a late night talk show. I mean, but it was like a fake late night talk show. Like it wasn't a real late night talk show.
Yeah, but they had real people on.
They had real people on. Exactly. Real guests. The only thing I can equate it to now is something like Comedy Bang Bang or, oh gosh, I can't think of it all of a sudden. Oh my, the Eric Andre show. It's more like the Eric Andre show because the Eric Andre show is based. He says he got his inspiration for his show from Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so for those of you who don't know why, or because Eric Andre, when he interviews guests, he doesn't tell them ahead of time what he's going to do. And he does just crazy things. And Space Ghost Coast to Coast, even though they're cartoons, real people would interview celebrities and they would ask real questions. But then when it would air on Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Space Ghost would come up with the most crazy questions, and then they would like edit the answers that the celebrities would give, so they would be just as crazy answers, and it made for some great TV and just great moments. Yeah. I mean, you talk about like memes long before memes were a thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh my gosh, that was hilarious.
Oh, I agree. Like, oh, now I want to go watch it.
Yeah, they should come out with that again. So that was, and then the Powerpuff Girls also came out of Cartoon Network, and Ed, and Eddie. I've never seen that cartoon, but that was
really
another one.
Yeah, it was a classic. Very stupid, but classic.
So yeah, Cartoon Network, and And I still, enjoy the Cartoon Network. I like the fact that they have Teen Titans, one of my favorite cartoons, is on there. And Samurai Jack, I think, also was on Cartoon Network as well.
It was. Yes, it was. Great show.
Yeah. So that was 1992. The other next thing here, I didn't realize was 1992. Again, this seems to me like this was always there, but the Mall of America was established, or opened its doors, I should say, in 1992.
What? I've never been there because I've never been out west, but that is one of my goals because I just want to see it,
I'm sorry, it made me laugh when you said I've never been out west because it's not really that far west.
I know. Like for me, I think I looked it up because that's in Minnesota, right? Like Minneapolis.
Yeah.
It is Minneapolis, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know,
but it's Minneapolis. Yeah.
Okay. That's like I'm trying to remember. It was like a 10-hour drive for me.
Oh, okay.
So that's not like, I mean, it's not close, but it's not ridiculously far either.
Well, if we do a road trip this summer.
Oh, you never know.
There you go.
I know I've talked about it before to try and come out that way just to visit because I've never been out west.
Yeah.
And technically, Ohio is considered Midwestern, but I've never been west.
I was going to say, so is Minnesota. It's also considered Midwestern. But yeah, that opened the doors. I've been to Mall America several times. It's really cool. I like the Legoland that they have there. It's very awesome. But they have over 500 stores. But I will say a lot of the stores tend to repeat itself because there's several floors. So you'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen this store already. Oh, I've seen that store on that floor before. But there's some really cool stores in there. There's like a board game store that has a bunch of different board games and such. So I really like going there to look and see what kind of different games they have. So
the closest I've been is there was a show on TLC, the Learning Channel, back in the day called Mall Cops, and it just followed the because I guess they have their own like police force. And
yeah,
I remember watching and loving that show. That's as close to the Mall of America I've ever been. So yeah, good times.
Riots break out in Los Angeles following the acquittal of 4 white officers accused of beating Rodney King. So I remember that actually.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. Like I said, I was 2 at the time, so I definitely don't remember it like when it happened. But that is something I definitely remember, kind of like knowing about when I got a little older.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's I don't want to say it's interesting. It's I don't know. It's weird that really I don't think much has changed. I guess that's what I was going to say. Not much has changed.
Yeah, because we were talking about this beforehand and how crazy it is that something like that happened over 20 years ago, and we still deal with a lot of that stuff today. I mean, and it's just weird that not much has really changed. And, I know people, I've seen people, I've talked with people that say like, oh, we've come a long way. I don't see that kind of stuff anymore, but it's just, you just turn on the news and that stuff happens still, almost on a daily basis, it seems like.
Yeah. And, for people that, may not remember, that trial. I mean, yeah, it's weird to see history repeat itself. I don't know. So, yeah, history does repeat itself, it seems like.
Very much so.
McDonald's opens its first store in China, Beijing.
Oh, that's pretty big. Pretty big.
Yeah, it's so weird to me to think about that, too. Like, now I don't feel like that's such a big deal, but apparently that was a big deal in 1992. But like, I think about like the stores and restaurants that are open now in China. I don't know. It's just so weird to me.
I mean, I could see that. Now that, I mean, you look at China now, and they're just blowing up with everything. But excuse me, but back then, I'm sure that was a big deal for both America, an American company, and for China.
Yeah. This I found interesting. Georgia Dome is completed, and it's the world's largest cable-supported fabric roof. Now, is the Georgia Dome even used anymore? I don't even know.
I was about to say, now that you bring it up, I think it was used for a hot second, but I don't think it's being used for anything right now.
I know, and I apologize for my lack of knowledge of football stadiums. I'm actually pretty good at knowing that stuff, but I'm like, I don't think they use a Georgia Superdome anymore. I'll have to look that up after.
So quick Google search. It does not exist anymore. They just tore it down.
Okay, yeah. I thought so. I thought that was the case, but I wasn't quite sure. So interesting. And then I have two other things here. AT&T releases the video phone. Guess how much would you have paid for a video phone in 1992?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna say $1,500.
Oh my goodness, you are correct.
What? Really?
Yes.
What, do I win?
You win a video phone.
Yay!
Worth nothing.
Probably don't want it now.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a big thing. I remember thinking to myself, "Oh my goodness, I cannot wait till we get video phones." And now that we have Skype and other ways, FaceTime and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't know if I really needed this.
Yeah. I mean, it's the future, man. Come on.
Yeah, there are some nice things. I mean, having family, far away, it is nice to be able to see them.
Agreed.
But it's kind of funny. The nicotine patch is first introduced in 1992.
Huh, I thought that was always a thing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize that was 1992. And then the Space Shuttle Endeavour does its first voyage. So, some popular films in 1992. Aladdin was in 1992.
I actually remember kind of, sort of, almost seeing that in the theaters.
What? You were too?
Vaguely. Vaguely. Like, when I say vaguely, I mean vaguely. I remember... I know my mom took me to see that in theaters. If I ask my mom right now, Mom, did you take me to the theaters to see Aladdin? Like me and my brother, because my brother would have been alive as well. She'd be like, yep.
I remember going out and buying the soundtrack for Aladdin because I absolutely loved that soundtrack.
Very nice, very nice.
Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, came out in 1992.
Wow.
Which I think also starred, I believe, Donald Trump.
Yes, he is in the second one. Yeah, he is definitely in the second one.
Batman Returns came out in 1992, which was an awesome movie. I loved that movie.
Yeah. Michael Keaton still is Batman, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
And then you had Wayne's World and Reservoir Dogs that came out in 1992 as well.
Huh, I didn't realize that was 92. Interesting.
Yeah. And then just a few popular musicians from 1992. We have Pearl Jam.
Classic.
Nirvana.
Oh, I mean, historically classic.
Toad the Wet Sprocket. Do you even know that band?
No, I do not.
I loved Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Okay.
And then Boyz II Men.
Yep. That was a big staple in my family to listen to.
U2.
Okay, not a fan, but I respect them.
Metallica and REM.
Both also historically classic and still going strong today.
What's funny about that Space Ghost Coast to Coast? They actually had Michael Stipe on that.
Stipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that interview.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. And then some TV shows that came out in 1992. We have Law and Order, or I shouldn't say came out in 1992. These were popular in 1992.
Okay.
Law and Order.
Still going strong.
Still going. Home Improvement.
Huh. Good show. I enjoyed it back in the day.
Rugrats.
Oh, that's a classic. Oh, that's 92?
Yeah.
That's great.
The Jerry Springer Show.
Huh. Any former mayor of Cincinnati? Not too proud of it.
Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, I was not allowed to watch it as a kid. I can tell you that much.
Married with Children.
That's a soap opera, right?
No, it was a comedy with
Okay.
Al Bundy. Yeah, it was probably a show that you probably shouldn't be allowed to watch either.
Fair enough.
And
which is why I had no idea what it was.
And Star Trek: The Next Generation as well.
Classic. That was 92, or was popular 92?
The popular 1992.
Okay. I've seen.
Yeah.
I've for sure seen Next Generation. Real quick. Barney was first televised in 92 also.
Are you kidding?
Nope. I looked it up. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. Interesting. So quick, one thing we have not done yet when it comes to like the history of the years that we've gone over is talk about people that were born. Now, I did look at the list of deaths. Now, keep in mind, I was, 2 years old, so I didn't recognize any of the names of people that died that year. But let's not be somber. Let's be, let's celebrate, So, I'm going to go in chronological order that I found this list. So, first on the list was Le'Veon Bell. For those that you don't know who he is the current running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers and arguably, I'll say arguably, one of the best running backs currently in the NFL.
Currently.
Currently.
I'll give you that.
John Boyega and Daisy Ridley, Finn and Rey from Star Wars were both born in 92.
That's crazy.
Just literally months apart from each other. So I thought that was crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And just to think that they're only 2 years younger than me and have the careers they have, like, I'm happy for them, but it's just also kind of weird. Like, when you think of like stars and stuff, you think of people that are like
older than you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And these guys are 2 years younger than me. That's just, that's weird to me.
Yeah. Just wait. As you get older,
yeah,
the more and more that happens to you, we're like, oh wow, that person's younger than me.
Fair enough. I remember when I turned like 23, I'm like, that moment you realize rookies in professional sports are younger than you are, and I'm like,
yep, I know. Yep.
Anyway, this is kind of personal, because I'm a huge LeBron James fan. So that means at the moment, at least, I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan also. I'll admit it. Kyrie Irving was born in 92, even though he's not a current Cavs. He's elsewhere. He got traded away. But he was born in 92. Jeanette McCurdy, for those who are iCarly fans, she played Carly's best friend, Sam. So Sam was a 92 kid. Billie Lourd, that is Carrie Fisher's daughter, who is in the new trilogy.
Yeah.
She was born in 92. Frances Bean Cobain, the one and only daughter between Kurt Cobain and someone who I don't like, so I won't even say her name. It is their one and only daughter together. Ezra Miller, the current rendition of the Flash in the Justice League movie. So for DC's universe of movies, Ezra Miller, who is, if you haven't seen Justice League, I don't know. I enjoyed Ezra Miller's version of the Flash, though. I will say that much because he's fantastic. So whether you loved it or hated it, at the very least, he's really good. Tyler James Williams was also born in 92. He played Chris Rock in the show Everybody Hates Chris. Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver for the New York Giants. That's, to me, I just can't believe that one.
Yeah,
him and Le'Veon Bell just blow my mind. Like, I feel like I've been watching these dudes forever, but they've only been in the league for, relatively speaking, not that long.
I know. Isn't that crazy? I mean, makes me feel old, actually.
Yeah, me too. And last but not least, the one, the only, Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
So those were all the births in 92.
Yeah.
The big birth. I would say big births in 92.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were born in 1992, we would have brought that up. But,
oh, yeah, sure. But I was not. I was already alive and probably walking by then and talking.
And remember seeing Aladdin in the theater.
Yeah, vaguely. I will emphasize vaguely. Very vaguely.
Just give me a hard time. All right. So, well, when we take a break here then, Karrington, when we come back, we'll talk about the games that were released in 1992, and then we'll talk about the game itself, the Super Star Wars. We'll give our thoughts on that game.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
All right. Stay tuned.
Have you ever been reading through a stack of comics and thought, hey, maybe I should see what this Arkham Asylum game is all about? Or been playing Marvel vs. Capcom and felt like you were at a real disadvantage because you didn't know who half the characters were? Well, Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode, I take a look at video games based on comic book properties and how well they stick to that source material. So, whether you know the comics and want to actually learn how these games work, or know the games and want to know what the hell is going on, go check out Play Comics at playcomics.com, the Brain Trust Bros Network, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Hey, it's Karrington from Real Dudes Podcast, and with me I have some fantastic co-hosts. Guys, why don't you introduce yourselves?
This is Andrew, coming to you from Lynchburg, Ohio.
This is Cody, coming from you also from Ohio.
And this is Kyle, coming to you straight from the armpits of West Virginia. We are an indie gaming podcast. We all share a love for games, and you can check out our show on Podbean. Just search for Real Dudes Podcast. You can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, really any of the podcasting outlets that you like to use. Again, that is Real Dudes Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you love video games, you will love our show.
What's up, everybody? I'm Tyler.
I'm Lucas. And I'm Chris.
And we're better than Static. We meet up once a week and talk about movies, comics, and video games.
I don't want to talk about that.
Why are you complaining about all the topics I bring up? I'm trying to sound professional, Chris.
But we're not that good.
We are too good.
We may not be great, but we are better than Static.
You guys can hit up iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube to check us out.
Remember that feeling of playing an ultra-hard video game and dying? Over and over and over? Ah! Yeah, so do we. Listen to the Controller Throwers podcast on iTunes and Google Play. And check out the live show every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time at twitch.tv/TCThrowers. The Controller Throwers. Pressing start since 1985.
So you've been listening to our podcast, and you've been thinking, you know what? I can do that. Yeah, you can. You can go through Podbean, our affiliate, and you can get 1 month free by going to podbean.com/GHPC. Podbean is what we use to host our podcast as well. On Podbean, you can host your podcast, and you can publish it there. It's actually quite simple to use. Again, to get 1 month free, you can go to podbean.com/GHPC. That stands for Gamerheads Podcast. All right, thanks everyone, and back to the show.
And welcome back. I'm here with Roger. My name is Karrington. We're back. We're gonna dive into what you're really here for. Almost. We're gonna talk about the games that were released first in 1992, and then we're gonna delve in to what you came here for. So, like we said, we're gonna talk about 1992. And the year in gaming was an exciting year that year. Westwood Studios, one of my favorite studios that is sadly no longer around. Looking at you, EA, because you're the one who shut them down. They released Dune 2, and it created the template for modern real-time strategy games today. So they're the reason the real-time strategies are set up the way they are now. Gosh, I miss Westwood. Man, they were such a good RTS studio, and EA... Anyway, I'm going to move on. Kirby's Dream Land was released on the Game Boy that year as well, and this was the first appearance of Kirby, so that big year for Kirby that year. Woot woot. id Software releases Wolfenstein 3D, so FPS.
Oh yeah.
Set a whole genre. It wasn't like the first FPS, but it popularized it for sure. Roger, how about you bring out the next one I was going to bring out? A certain game from LucasArts that's not Star Wars related?
Yeah. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. Oh my goodness, I loved this game.
For good reason.
This game so much. It was, at the time, considered the most advanced adventure game was fantastic. I mean, the voice acting was really good, and the just playing this new adventure for Indiana Jones, it was a great game.
I wholeheartedly agree. And if other LucasArts adventure games can get re-releases such as Day of the Tentacle and others, because I'm too tired to think of them right now, but most of their adventure games, it seems like, have gotten re-releases, but we haven't seen releases of the Indiana Jones series.
Yeah,
What's going on, LucasArts? Come on.
Well, might be that Disney owns it now, right?
Yeah. I mean, Disney likes money.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they released, like you said, Day of the Tentacle. I don't know why they wouldn't release this, but yeah, a good game.
Good game. Next we have Echo the Dolphin, which was a staple of my childhood. Was released in '92. Was the first Echo the Dolphin. I know it at least spawned at least one sequel, if I remember right.
Yep.
Also, first Super Mario Kart was also the first one. It was released that year as well. Yeah, it was great. I think, if I remember right, it's about I think I was reading just rumors, that I might be seeing New Life on the Switch. So I hope so.
Oh.
Like I said, it's just rumors.
I will say this: that game is not as fun playing it now as it was when I was a kid.
Fair enough. I only played Super Mario Kart a couple times as a kid, but when Mario Kart 64 came out, to me that was the real game changer.
Yeah.
Next I have a sort of controversial game, Mortal Kombat, the first one.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of controversial releases, Roger, you have one on your list as well.
Yeah, Sega releases Night Trap for the Sega CD console. And that game actually just saw new life due to limited run games this last year, actually. So
very nice. Yeah. Video games are starting to become controversial. It started.
I think that's actually the first game where Congress came out and said, "Oh, we need to have some kind of rating system for our games." I remember my parents not letting me play that game.
Did you want to play it? You were 16 at the time.
I was 16. I don't know if I really wanted to play it, but I wanted to see why are people so up in arms about it.
Fair enough. I mean, I could see that, being 16 and stuff, you just being at least curious in some way.
Yeah.
Next we have Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins released on the Game Boy. Why is that important? Yeah. Because it was the first appearance of Wario.
I know, crazy. And this is also the fun fact about this game. This game, my wife can beat this game pretty much with her eyes closed.
What? Seriously?
Yes, she absolutely loves this game, and she's really good at it.
Very nice. That's impressive. I can consider me impressed.
I can't beat this game, but it was like one of the only Game Boy games that they had, and she just played it over and over and over again. And so like I remember I picked it up I don't know, I want to say a few years ago, but probably like 8 years ago, just as used, and she was able to beat it right away. I'm like, holy cow! She's like, I can't believe I remember all this. And literally, it's speedrun. She's super fast at it.
That's amazing. Well, speaking of speedruns. Probably one of my all-time favorite games, just overall, was released and had a huge impact on my childhood and still has a huge impact on my life today. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was released on the Sega Genesis.
Yep.
And it was a huge deal when Sonic 2 came out because it introduced things like the Spin Dash, Super Sonic, when you collect all the Chaos Emeralds, you can turn to Super Sonic. That was new for the series as well. And it also introduced Tails as a character.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, because I've gone back.
You can play as Tails, right? Is that
yeah,
right?
You can play as yeah. Oh yeah. If you go through the options, you can do Sonic and Tails together, just Sonic or just Tails.
And was this the game? I could be wrong, but wasn't there an adapter where you could bring Tails into some of the older games too? I don't know. I wasn't really much of a Sonic fan.
Gotcha. No, that was not until the release of Sonic and Knuckles could you start doing that stuff. Yeah. So it was still a few years away, but yeah, Sonic 2. is one of my all-time favorite games. Just, I still play it today. I have it on so many different ways. It's not even funny. I even own it on PC.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
The next two things I think are really interesting. So Philips released the CDI.
Yes.
CDI was a failed thing, but at the same time, I mean, it's known for releasing probably one of the worst renditions of The Legend of Zelda known to mankind.
My goodness. Yeah, I don't know if you listened to the episode of Gamerheads where we talked about the CDI, because Jake's store had that. Somebody brought it in. Yeah.
What?
I mean, yeah. Somebody brought it in and had like a stack full of games, and they're like, "We don't want this anymore."
Did Jake freak out? Like, oh my gosh, this is really happening, kind of thing?
I don't think he freaked out as much as me when I went in. I'm like, "Oh my god, what is this?"
Was Zelda in the stack of games?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, there was actually, I think, 2 Zelda games actually.
Oh.
And there was Hotel Mario as well.
I had no idea about Hotel Mario. I just know about Zelda because of how they botched it.
Yeah, I think there was there was 2 different Zelda type games in that stack.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So I got one last thing for 92. And I think this is the funniest thing to me. Just thinking back, considering, because it deals with Activision and what Activision is now. Activision, at the time they were known as Mediagenic, files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Think about that. They are now one of the largest video game publishers known to mankind right now, because you think about it, they own, they're Activision. They also own Blizzard. So by extension, they own World of Warcraft and Overwatch and you know, some of the biggest video game franchises known to mankind. Like Call of Duty. So yeah, they filed for bankruptcy in 92. I just think that is,
wow,
that's flabbergasting to me.
Yeah. I have one other thing I was going to bring up. The Atari Corporation dropped support. This is so funny. Dropped support for the Atari 2600, the Atari 8-bit family, and Atari 7800, and software for those systems. And my thought was, were people still making software for an Atari 2600?
Did people care about Atari in the early 90s?
No, I don't think so.
Because by then, it was full-on Nintendo versus Sega war, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Growing up, we had an Atari. Mm-hmm. So we had Atari 2600. And I still actually remember the jingle. It's a 2600 from Atari. Something about Space Invaders and Cars That's Row. It's a special low price, under $50. Under $50 now. Isn't that nice? It's fun is back. Oh yes, sirree. It's a 2600 from Atari.
Ooh, very nice.
I don't remember if the price was really that price, but I do remember that jingle. But you know, we got rid of the Atari when we got the NES. The NES back in the 80s. So I cannot believe that there was actually still support for Atari 2600.
I can't believe it either.
In the year 1982.
I
was not playing it.
So yeah, there you go, everybody. 1992
Crazy.
in video game history.
So 1992 also released the game that we'll be talking about today.
Oh yeah, that's right. What we're actually here for.
Super Star Wars.
Yeah. I remember. So here's the thing that I remember, because keep in mind, like I've said several times already, I was only 2.
Yeah. But you beat it, right? Is that those?
No. Well, I don't remember having a Super Nintendo that young. So that's one thing, at least for me. I remember as far as the Super Nintendo is concerned, I remember being 4 or 5. So you're talking 94, 95, and we're getting close to the N64 release. But I do remember playing a lot of Super Star Wars as a kid, like a lot.
Yeah.
So I remember very well. And I remember even going back, you know, as I got older, I would still go back and play Super Star Wars. Like, it holds a special place to me. And I'm not talking, you know, Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, which I've played them as well. But Super Star Wars, I think, speaks to me a little bit more. Even though Empire Strikes Back and Return of the but I don't know. Just Super Star Wars has a special place in my heart.
Interesting. So I'll give my first impressions of Super Star Wars.
Go right ahead.
So I remember when I loaded up and the first thing comes up and you hear the music playing, I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And I was just like blown away by like the music and the graphics, because prior to this, the Star Wars games that I have played were like Atari Star Wars games. And Empire Strikes Back on Atari was absolutely horrendous. I mean, just terrible. I don't remember if X-Wing versus TIE Fighter or X-Wing was out prior to
X-Wing versus TIE Fighter I think was 96, 97, but I think X-Wing should have been out by then. Or if it wasn't, it was pretty close.
Okay. Because I remember being blown away by that game too. But I remember just thinking on the Super Nintendo, I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is so amazing!" And then I started playing the game, and I will say I was kind of taken aback by what are these scorpions doing here? Why are there like these bat-like creatures I have to shoot? Wait, what is going on here? And I had to drive the speeder to the
Sandcrawler.
Yeah, the Sandcrawler. And that was such a terrible level because it was just terribly designed. And then you go to the Sandcrawler and you have to crawl through the Sandcrawler. And I remember not liking it.
That's very interesting. So I remember, and I'll still go back and play that game like, "Oh my gosh, I love this game."
Oh, see, and then going through the Death Star and oh, that was terrible. I hated that so much.
Now, I will say, this game is not easy. Like, none of the Super Star Wars games are easy.
Well, I felt that Empire Strikes Back and certainly Return of the Jedi, in my opinion, were a lot easier to I beat both of those games. I don't remember beating Star Wars. I remember one of us in my family did, but I don't remember if it was me. I do remember beating Empire and Return of the Jedi, but God, I hated it. Just even the last trench battle thing. All you had to do is keep shooting torpedoes. I mean, it was lame.
Well, I will say though, in the defense of Super Star Wars, I mean, Empire and Return of the Jedi had some stuff in there that were really crazy too. Like, so I mean,
the asteroid flying through the asteroids and Empire was terrible. Yeah. That was a really long.
And don't forget, the first boss in Return of the Jedi is that weird thing that comes out that talks to C-3PO and R2-D2 when they were arrive at Jabba's palace. That's the first boss of Return of the Jedi. Don't forget that.
That's true. I know. But remember, Star Wars also had like the Imperial, what do they call that? The detention droid. And I'm like, what the heck is this thing?
Now think about it. I could see how it was really weird.
Yes. Because to me, I think the thing that was weird to me was the fact that it opens up and you're like, "Oh my goodness, this is so amazing." It's going to be like, it's like watching the beginning of the movie. For 1992, that was a big deal. And then you start playing the game and you're like, "This is nothing like the movie at all. What is going on here?"
I think the only similarities it shares with its movie counterpart, which I have to, I'm going to tell you something here in a second as well, but anyway, like, it only the locations are the same. Like, it doesn't follow really the movie at all, except for maybe blowing up the Death Star. But even that is really weird.
Yeah.
So I have some now that you mentioned that. Get this. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Electronic Gaming Monthly, EGM. May they rest in peace because they're no longer around. 92 awarded it 2 awards. Best Action Adventure Game and Best Movie to Game tie-in.
What?
Yes.
What? Well,
yes.
How many Movie to Games were there back there, though? That is actually, well, I mean, I guess we did have some on Atari.
Yeah.
But again, if you compare it to Atari, this was a really good game.
And if you go back and play the NES version of Star Wars, which only got I think it only got a Japanese release, I think.
I don't remember playing
it's
that
bad.
game.
I've only seen videos of it. Never played it. I've only seen videos. It's bad. It's really bad. Like Darth Vader turns into a scorpion or something. It is so weird and bizarre. Like the bar was not set that high to make a good Star Wars game.
Yeah. So yeah, they're like, oh my goodness, this is a great movie to game translation, because I mean, compared to all the other movie to game translations, I mean, up to this point, again, like E.T. Remember on Atari?
Oh yes.
Terrible.
Awful. Unplayable.
Unplayable, exactly. Raiders of the Lost Ark on Atari, terrible game. Temple of Doom on Atari, on NES, not very good. I mean, there wasn't that many good games to movie translations.
No, there was not. So Star Wars, and so here's the other thing too that I remember going to a friend's house, right, and they downloaded Super Star Wars on the PS4 because it did get new life on the PS4.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
And at the time, I didn't have a PS4, so I'm at a friend's house and they're playing it, and I'm laughing my butt off watching these guys because they'd never played it before. And they're like, "Oh, so you think you think you could do better?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can do better. I played this all the time as a kid, still do." And they're like, "Yeah, whatever." So I get the controller, and I'm flying through it, man. And they're like, "Dude, are you serious?" And I'm just like, and I still remember a lot of like the secrets that are in it. And one of the secrets is like standing in one spot, shooting in midair where there's nothing there, and then a weapon upgrade appears. And they're like, "You still remember that?" I'm like, "Dude, yes, I still remember this. Get on my level."
Crazy. Whoa. Well, that's good though. I mean, this is actually a really good game to pick because you have such good fond memories of the game, and I remember thinking to myself, I didn't really like this game a whole lot. I mean, compared to its sequels that came afterwards. I mean, to me, Super Star Wars just it just didn't
do it for you.
Hold as much. Yeah, exactly. It didn't hold my attention like the other two did.
I can see that because I mean, even when you like start up Empire Strikes Back, like everything is better. The graphics are better, the animation's better, the music's better. Like everything about Empire Strikes Back, going from Super Star Wars to Empire Strikes Back, everything about Empire is just so much better.
Yeah. In Empire and in Return of the Jedi, that's where you start getting like the Force powers too. So yeah.
And Luke doesn't get his lightsaber until he meets Obi-Wan, and even then, it's like there isn't a whole lot of reason to use it unless you're going up against like I'm sorry, like for me at least, I didn't like using Luke Skywalker once I could choose either Han Solo or Chewbacca in Super Star Wars, because to me they were much better characters to play with.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, that was kind of a unique thing about the game, right? That you could take either Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, or Chewbacca when you got to a certain point where they're available, right? So, but
and I remember Chewbacca had a ton of health, so I was Chewbacca a lot.
Yeah, everybody picked Chewbacca, exactly. Me too. So yeah, I mean, it was an okay game. I won't say it was a terrible game. I've certainly played a lot worse games than that.
Oh yes, for sure.
I think that part of it was, like you said, just how really difficult that game was. Once you got to the Death Star, that game got really, really hard.
It did get really hard, but once I got to a certain point, I could almost beat. I can guarantee anybody I'll beat the game. And for me, if I can get past the Dune Sea. All of the Dune Sea, because you're on Tatooine for a long time.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I will say about the game. Like, you were on Tatooine in that game probably for like a good half of the game, if not more.
Yeah, I agree. Because, gosh, even past because it's the initial Dune Sea. I don't know why it's there, but you're there. Then you drive to a sandcrawler, and then you're in the sandcrawler, and then you have to get to Obi-Wan's place, which is ridiculously hard, and then you go to Mos Eisley, and then after Mos Eisley, that's 5 levels right there. And after Mos Eisley, I think there's only 2 or 3 more levels, and you're done.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird. It's such a weird game. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like maybe they were like, oh, we're gonna make this really epic game, and then they got through like 5 levels of Tatooine, and they're like, you know what? Let's just end this game.
Gosh. Yeah, for me, after I meet up with Obi-Wan, if I can get past Obi-Wan, I can guarantee you I can beat the game after that. It's not
interesting.
That's just how I've always been.
Well, I mean, kind of tied into that game then. I mean, like we mentioned, we have the Last Jedi that just came out last year, at the end of last year. So we wanted to talk about this game because of the Last Jedi coming out. What were your thoughts, Karrington, of the Last Jedi?
So I certainly don't hate it like most of the internet does. I don't think it's the greatest Star Wars movie ever made, but in my opinion, now I've seen it 3 times now. Yeah. And every time I see it, for some reason, for me at least, it gets more emotional for some reason. And I think it's just because I know what's going to happen. And I feel like you can pick up on a lot of things the actors did to convey, like what was happening, what they were going through and things like that. And so for me, at least, it's one of the more emotional Star Wars for sure. And it's crazy to think like, so with The Force Awakens, people were like, it's great and all, but it's a copy of A New Hope. And then when The Last Jedi comes out, it better not be a copy of Empire Strikes Back. Well, it wasn't a copy of Empire Strikes Back, and people were like, this is the worst movie ever made. And it's just like, where do we draw the line here,
Yeah.
And what were your thoughts on it?
I remember thinking, I mean, I liked it. It wasn't like it was a bad Star Wars movie. I certainly won't rank that in my top 3 Star Wars movies.
Okay.
But the more I look back at it now, the more things start making sense of Luke Skywalker's reasons of why he did what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 things that I took out of that movie, one, the first thing I took out is if you're a supervisor or if you're a manager of employees, you should really watch this movie. Because it will teach you that you should probably always tell your employees what your plans are.
Yes.
Because otherwise they'll just go and do something really stupid and brash.
Especially when your name is Poe Dameron.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the first thing that I learned from that movie. The second one that I learned from that movie was that it takes somebody like a Daisy to basically be the strength for 2 men. She had to be the strength for Luke Skywalker and for Kylo Ren, Ben.
Yeah,
so, because really they don't have the emotional intelligence like she does.
Yeah, that's true.
So I thought that was really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, looking back at it, there were certainly things that I don't know. I wish that they went differently, but it was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I was really hoping Rian Johnson continued and would go on to make episode 9, because I like him as a director more so than J.J. Abrams. That's probably blasphemy. But there's a lot of little things that I like that Rian Johnson did, even though they were... So, for example, there are literally just 2 shots in the movie that I loved the first time I saw it and loved it the second and third times even more. And those 2 shots are Poe Dameron when he's flying the X-Wing. First, when he's flying on the and he's trying to evade the TIE fighters and stuff.
Yeah.
And he does that quick turnaround. Yeah. And there's just a quick shot of him inside the cockpit where he slams the joystick and I'm like, that's a cool shot. And then the other cool shot that I really liked a lot, and it's like I said, it's really quick, when Poe Dameron gets back to the flagship and he stops his X-Wing and it's a quick shot of him inside the X-Wing. We don't see that in Star Wars. It's the first time we've seen moves like that and how people are still affected by the stuff that they do inside of those ships. And I thought it was that's really cool, even though it's just literally probably a total of 2 seconds worth of film and the entire movie. I just like that Rian Johnson
shows us that
kind of thing, because I really like inside shots like that a lot.
Yeah.
And also on top of that, I love Adam Driver and I love Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
As a character and as an actor, a lot. I'm a huge fan. And I like what Rian Johnson did with Kylo Ren this time around more so than what JJ did in Force Awakens.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I think that he was a lot more, I guess, an understandable character. I understood where he was coming from in this movie versus in the first one. One thing that I thought was kind of a little bit, I don't know if it just seemed like out of character, or maybe that there wasn't like a connection between the first movie and the second movie. Was when Daisy when Ray says to him, why did you kill your father? Why did you hate him so much? And he says, I didn't hate my father. It was because I had this connection. I had to get rid of that connection. And in the first movie, he says to her, "Oh, you'll disappoint him, or he'll disappoint you just as much, whatever the case." Like, it was very like bashing on Han Solo, and I was like, "What is it? Do you not like Han Solo? Is it that you like were upset with him? Like, the second movie he was just like, I had no problem with him. He just had to die because he was my father. I had ties." And I was like, seems like inconsistent.
Fair enough. What I usually say because Kylo Ren says something to Rey, and I think that's what Kylo has been trying to do this entire time in The Force Awakens, and even in Last Jedi that he's struggling with. He tells Rey that to let go of the past, to let it die, and I think that in a way that's what Kylo's been trying to do, and what he's been struggling with as well, because he still has a lot of internal issues that I think he's still trying to work through.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But that's just my theory, because he's one of my favorite characters, and I'm just like, I love him. and I was talking to a lot of friends recently. The one thing I really love about Kylo Ren a lot, and it's a very, very small thing. Usually when Jedis or Sith, take out their lightsabers, the hilt is usually on their right side.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if they're right or left-handed, they use their left hand to take it off the hilt. Which is it's just interesting. Like, when you think about it, I don't know why they do that. They just do that. And Kylo, when he does it, he takes his right hand and he drops it down and brings his hand up. And it just, like, aesthetically, when you look at it, it looks really nice.
Yeah.
And then Kylo goes into his stance, that he does. And to me, that just adds to the character a little bit. And to show, like, because he's trying to portray how powerful he is. And it's a really powerful, like, way of taking your lightsaber out and stuff. At least in my opinion.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's just something I noticed,
Yeah. Well, folks, I mean, you came to hear the discussion on Super Star Wars, and you stayed for
for The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, right? So yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll go into more topics like this. Probably tie, and that's our idea too, is that we'll tie in like cultural events to the video game, whether it be current events or past events. But it's all kind of related. So.
Indeed. And we'll probably talk more about Star Wars in the future, because
sure.
We're both Star Wars fans.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm glad, by the way, that someone else brought up X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, because that is probably one of my favorite space flight sims ever. Or just the X-Wing series in general. It's great. And TIE Fighter.
That was a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
They should re-release those too, so.
I got stories about that, but I will leave those for another time.
Well, Karrington, how can people get a hold of you?
All right, so you can get a hold of me on Xbox or PS4. I'm Desert Fury 90, or Twitter at Desert Fury 90. If you're listening to this, you probably know I'm a co-host of Real Dudes Podcast, so you can also reach me over there for sure. Twitter at RealDudes_pod, at Facebook and Instagram at Real Dudes Podcast, and also our website realdudespodcast.com. What about you, Roger? Where can people get a hold of you?
Well, people can get a hold of me. My PlayStation handle is Rogue Leader 76. Kind of ties into the Star Wars, actually. And then on the Xbox, since somebody already had that name, I had to use Rogue Leader 1976, but the A in Leader is the number 4, because somebody already had that for some reason. So it's ROGUELE, the number 4, DER 1976. But you can also get a hold of us on Twitter. So if you're listening to this, you probably know that I'm the host, one of the hosts of Gamerheads. So you can get a hold of Gamerheads Podcast on Twitter. It's Gamerheads PC. You can email us at gamerheadspodcast@gmail.com. You can also look us up on Facebook at Gamerheads Podcast. And then you can also listen to us on iTunes or on Podbean, where we're hosted. And that's at gamerheadspodcast.podbean.com.
Very, very nice, and I'm sure we'll do more of these in the future. So if you love the crossplay compatible series, keep your eye out for more on their both respected channels, and look for updates on what we're gonna do in the future.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Karrington.
No problem. Thank you, good sir. You have a nice well, since it's in the evening, I'll say have a nice evening, and I'm sure we will talk again very soon.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.